This slow-cooked, meaty ragu is the perfect make-ahead sauce, whether you're making a lasagna or just a nice pasta dish. It's so decadent and the flavor is out of this world. You're gonna love it. So let me show you how to make it. Start by preparing a soffritto. Finely chop 2 carrots, 2 stalks of celery, and 1 large red onion. I've used my food processor because I like them very fine. I'm using red onion in this recipe because that's what's typically used in Italy, but if you have brown or white onions or even shallots, you can use those in place. To a large heavy bottom pot, add about 2 tablespoons, around 30 milliliters of a good quality olive oil. Turn that on to medium-high heat. When your olive oil comes to temperature, add in your carrots, onion, and celery, and then give that a good stir and give it a little sprinkling of salt. The salt at this stage helps to draw the moisture out of the vegetables so they start to steam. And you'll notice I didn't add any garlic to this recipe. Not every Italian dish has garlic in it, but I won't be mad if you want to add a little bit in. While this is cooking, let's get onto our meat. You want to blend together your pork and your beef. And the reason I do this is so that you have an even flavor throughout the entire dish and you don't just get bits of beef or bits of pork. I'm using a 2-to-1 ratio of ground beef to ground pork. If you can't find ground pork, because sometimes it can be a challenge, you could use Italian sausage in its place.
I'm using 1 kilogram, around 2 pounds of beef, and 500 grams, around 1 pound of pork. Your hands are a great tool for this job, but I sometimes just pop it into my KitchenAid mixer and let it do this job for me. You'll want to be sure to use a good quality, high-fat beef for this recipe, at least 10% fat. This really helps add to the flavor, and you can drain off some of the fat later. Once the meat is evenly mixed, it's ready for the next stage.
Place a large sauté or frying pan on medium-high to high heat and add in another 2 tablespoons, 30 milliliters of olive oil. I'm going to have to do this in batches because I have so much meat to cook. And if you add too much meat to the pan, you won't get that browning.
When you add the meat to the pan, press it down into the pan with the back of your spoon. This makes sure you have the most surface area touching the pan to get all of those crispy brown bits. Now leave the meat alone so it can start to brown. I've slightly turned down the heat on my soffritto so it doesn't burn, but make sure to give it a stir every now and again. Once you have a nice browning on the bottom side of your meat, flip it over and cook the other side. This should only take a few minutes. Now that it's caramelized on both sides, start breaking up your meat with a wooden spoon. I sometimes even use a potato masher for this job to get the pieces extra fine. Now's a great time to go in with a paper towel and soak up some of that fat if you're worried about the fat content. Using a slotted spoon, add your cooked meat to your pot with the soffritto, and then continue cooking the rest of your meat in the exact same way. You may need to add another drizzle of olive oil if your pan is a little bit dry.
Now, every family has their own variations and recipes for a ragu. Ragu basically means a slow-cooked meat sauce. In England, this would be known as a bolognese, but technically it's not a bolognese recipe. That's a very highly protected recipe by the Italian government, and it includes things like milk. So this is just a standard ragu that you can use in any of your dishes.
Once all of the meat has been added, give it a good stir so that the meat and the soffritto come together. Then add in 2 tablespoons, 30 grams of tomato paste. I like to make a little well in the bottom of my meat so that the tomato paste really hits the heat. It helps to cook out the raw flavor and gives a really nice balance to the sauce. After about a minute or so, you can start stirring the tomato paste into the rest of the mixture. It's important to season at every layer, so go ahead and add in a pinch or 2 of salt. Add in a half a cup or 125 milliliters of a good quality Italian red wine, one that you'd like to drink. This adds real body and flavor to the sauce.
I like the flavor that wine brings to this dish, and I like that it helps to break down the meat. But it's not necessary in this recipe if you tend to not use wine in your cooking. Just leave it out completely.
Let the wine cook and evaporate almost completely before adding in your tomatoes. I'm adding in 2 700-gram jars, around 5.5 cups of tomato passata.
I'm using a good quality passata for this recipe. Some of you may know that as tomato puree or just tomato sauce. If you make your own tomato sauce, you can just use that instead of passata. Use your favorite.
And don't waste any of the passata that's still in the jar. Fill each jar about halfway with water and give it a shake with the lid on to remove any excess tomato. Then add that to your pot. Give that a really good stir and make sure none of the meat is sticking to the bottom of the pot. It's important to keep an eye on your sauce throughout the cooking process, so give it a stir every now and again. If your sauce is looking too thick at any point during the cooking process, add in a little more water. At this stage, I'm adding in my aromatics. Add in 2 bay leaves. I'm adding in a few teaspoons of my aromatic salt to make this extra delicious.
If you're not using my aromatic salt recipe, you're going to want to elevate those flavors somehow. So add in the bay leaves, a stick of rosemary, and some sage. You can even add the entire peel off of a lemon into the mix. If I'm doing this, I like to tie them together in a bouquet garni so they're easy to fish out at the end. But if you do want to make my aromatic salt, I've linked my recipe in the description below.
You can always adjust the seasoning and add more salt at the end of the cooking process, but because it's going to cook for such a long time, those flavors are really going to multiply, so don't over-season at this point. Once your sauce starts to bubble, turn the heat right down to low, pop the lid on so it's slightly ajar, and let this cook for at least 4 hours, or up to 12.
I find this sauce is even better after it's rested a day or 2 in the fridge, but you could also store it in your freezer. I like to pop mine in individual cubes or bags so that they're ready and portion sized when I need to use them. This recipe goes perfect in my authentic bolognese lasagna. Check it out here. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button down below, and I'll see you next week.